Welcome to the Shadow Steam. You found your way here somehow, to this quiet corner of the night where the world goes still and the stories whisper louder than the wind. Tonight's theme is simple and deeply unsettling. Treehouses. Those wooden hideaways we built to feel safe, lifted above the world, tucked between branches. But sometimes, what's waiting up there isn't meant to be found. These are 4 true stories of what happens when the laughter fades and something else begins to climb the ladder. You'll hear about sounds that shouldn't echo from the trees, eyes that watch through cracks in the floorboards, and the kind of presence that doesn't come from any animal. These stories aren't just retellings. They're confessions from people who thought they were alone. And after tonight, you might realize that height doesn't always mean safety. Most people drift through these tales and vanish before the next one begins. But if you keep returning here and haven't subscribed yet, maybe it's time to stay. Tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Where are you watching from? Your bed, your couch, the dark edge of a room you don't want to look into? Type it in the comments. I'll be reading. The first time I heard the knocking, I thought it was just the wind. I was halfway up the old rope ladder, flashlight in my mouth, trying to see if the treehouse was still safe enough to climb. My hand froze mid-air because the sound didn't come from above me. It came from inside. 3 slow knocks. Pause. Then one more, like someone wanted me to know they were waiting. The light trembled in my mouth. I stared at the little hatch door at the top of the ladder, the one my brother and I built when we were kids. It was swollen and warped from the rain, but the sound was clear. Someone, or something, was in there. I told myself it was an animal. Maybe a raccoon, maybe a bird trapped in the walls. But it didn't sound like scratching or scuffling. It sounded rhythmic, deliberate. I almost climbed down, but my foot slipped and that tiny noise made the knocking stop completely. The silence after was worse than the sound. The treehouse was behind my parents' old house, the one they sold years ago after my brother went missing. They'd moved states. I'd stayed gone. But last month when Mom called crying, saying she'd been having dreams about him again, I couldn't ignore it. So I came back. I told myself it was just to help her let go, pack up memories, maybe get closure. But I knew the real reason. I wanted to see if he was still here. I climbed the rest of the way up, every rung creaking under my weight. When I reached the hatch, I pushed it open slowly. The flashlight beam shook as I swept it around the inside. Nothing, just dust, leaves, and the smell of rot. But the air was wrong. It was colder inside than it should have been. The light cut through thin lines of dust and I could see my breath for a second. My brother and I used to keep toys in here. Old comics, a BB gun, some snacks. But now it looked like something else had been living there. In the corner, there was a pile of blankets that weren't ours. They looked newer, dirty but not ancient, like someone had been sleeping up here recently. I stepped closer, careful not to make the wood groan. The smell was damp and sour. There was a metal thermos tucked beside the blanket pile, and next to it, a Polaroid photo. My stomach dropped. It was a picture of me, not from childhood, from now. I was standing at the edge of the woods, wearing the same jacket I had on tonight. I nearly fell through the floor trying to get out. When I hit the ground, I didn't even bother pulling the ladder up behind me. I just ran. My flashlight beam bounced wildly off the trees until I tripped over a root and went sprawling into the dirt. I could taste blood in my mouth. The woods were dead quiet. No wind, no bugs, just that deep, unnatural silence that makes your ears ring. I lay there trying to listen, trying to breathe. That's when I heard it. The creak of the rope ladder above me. I looked up. The flashlight beam caught it just for a second. The ladder was moving, not from the wind. It was swaying like someone was climbing down. I scrambled backward on my hands and heels, my breath coming out in little gasps. The beam shook so bad I couldn't see what was up there, just the shifting shadow of the treehouse above me, like it was breathing. Then the creaking stopped. I forced myself to stand, backing up slowly until I hit the fence line at the edge of the property. I wanted to run straight to the car, but my keys were in my backpack, still inside the treehouse. I told myself I'd come back in the morning, that it wasn't worth it, that no one was up there. But as I turned toward the street, I heard something that made my stomach twist. It was a voice, soft, almost like a child's. "Don't leave me up here again, I didn't sleep that night." I drove to a motel an hour away and locked myself in the room, staring at the door until sunrise. Every sound outside, every footstep, every car, made my chest tighten. At one point, I thought I heard knocking again. Same pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 1 more. But it was probably just someone next door. Probably. When the sun came up, I convinced myself to go back. I couldn't leave that photo there. I couldn't leave my backpack or the proof that someone, maybe a squatter, maybe worse, had been using that treehouse. I told myself I'd bring my phone this time, record everything, maybe call the police if it was weird again. But mostly, I wanted to see that picture again. I wanted to understand how someone had taken it. The woods looked different in daylight, smaller, less haunted. The treehouse looked like what it had always been, a relic of our childhood half falling apart. The ladder hung still. The hatch was open. I climbed slowly, heart pounding in my throat. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the boards. The pile of blankets was still there, but the photo was gone. So was my backpack. I whispered, "Hello?" Silence. Then, from behind the wallboards came a tiny scraping sound, like fingernails. I backed up toward the hatch, one hand on the edge. The sound stopped again, and then I heard breathing. Not mine. And that's when I saw it. Someone had carved something new into the wall right beside where I'd found the photo. The letters were jagged, uneven, fresh. "Stay and play." The words on the wall looked freshly carved, the wood still pale where the knife had bitten through. "Stay and play." I kept staring at it like if I looked long enough it would explain itself. My pulse was pounding so loud it felt like the whole treehouse was vibrating. Whoever had written it hadn't done it long ago. The shavings were still on the floor, curled like tiny yellow ribbons. I pulled out my phone, snapped a few shaky photos, and started recording a video. My voice sounded small when I said the date, my name, what I'd found. It felt stupid, but I needed proof. Something about being in that space made me feel like if I didn't document it, I might start doubting it ever happened. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. A small metal latch near the floorboards. It wasn't part of the original build. My brother and I had hammered every nail in this place ourselves. We'd used scrap wood, old hinges from the shed, random junk. But this latch was new, clean. I knelt down, brushed away some dirt, and saw a square outline of a hidden panel. The second I touched it, the smell hit me. Not rot, not death, just old sweat, like someone had been in there too long, trapped. I opened it slowly. Inside was a narrow crawl space, barely big enough for a person to squeeze into. There was a thin mattress pad, a plastic water bottle, and a crumpled hoodie. My hoodie, the one I lost years ago when I was 15. And sitting right in the middle of it, another photo. This one was of my brother. He was about 8 in the picture. Dirt on his face. Hair too long, smiling in front of the treehouse. That would have been just days before he disappeared. I whispered his name. Evan, like maybe the air would answer me. Then I noticed the handwriting on the back of the photo. Sloppy, uneven, but familiar in a way that made my throat tighten. "You came back. I knew you would." My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the boards, holding the photo like it might start burning. I felt dizzy, sick. It didn't make sense. My brother was gone. The police said he'd wandered off. No signs of foul play. No remains ever found, just gone. And yet the handwriting looked just like his. I don't remember climbing down the ladder. I think I just ran until I hit the back porch. The air felt too hot, too heavy. I kept seeing his face in my head. That same smile frozen in time. I sat on the porch steps for a long time, shaking, trying to call Mom, but I couldn't make my fingers work right. When I finally looked up, the woods were still, empty, but I had this crawling sense that someone was watching me from the trees, not from above, from between them. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No contact name. I hesitated, then answered, static, then a voice, quiet, childlike. "You left the door open." I froze. "Who is this?" The line clicked dead. That night I didn't go back to the motel. I stayed at the house. I told myself I needed to see if anyone came back. Maybe I'd catch whoever was doing this. A squatter, some sick prankster. I sat by the kitchen window, lights off, phone camera pointed toward the tree line. The air outside was black and silent. Around midnight, I started seeing movement, faint glimmers of light between the branches, like someone waving a flashlight too weak to cut through the dark. It stopped at the base of the treehouse. Then, slowly, the light started climbing. I grabbed my phone and zoomed in. The ladder swayed, but the figure was too dark to make out, just a long shape pulling itself up rung by rung. I whispered to myself, "Call the cops," but I didn't. I just sat there staring, waiting to see what it would do. When the light reached the hatch, it stopped. A moment later, something else flashed in the corner of my screen. It was me. Another phone, another camera pointed directly back at my window. The reflection in the glass showed it. Someone filming me from up in the treehouse. I dropped my phone. My breath caught in my throat. I ran out the back door before I could think. The night air hit like ice. My heart was pounding so hard it made my vision blur. I pointed my flashlight at the treehouse, screaming, "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer. Just the creak of the ladder in the wind. Then I saw the glint, a reflection from up top. Someone leaning just out of view, holding something metallic. I shouted again. The ladder shifted once, and then stilled. When I finally took a step forward, something brushed my ankle. I looked down and almost screamed. It was another photo, fresh, glossy. I picked it up, my fingers shaking. It was me, standing at the kitchen window. And behind me, in the reflection, a shape crouched in the corner of the room. I dropped the picture and ran. I didn't stop until I hit the front yard, barely breathing. The house looked different from this angle. Darker, hollow. Every window a set of empty eyes. I wanted to leave, to get in my car and never come back, but I couldn't shake the thought that maybe it was Evan. Maybe he hadn't died at all. Maybe he'd been living out there all this time in the trees, watching. The thought wasn't comforting. It made my stomach twist. Because if that was true, and if he'd survived somehow, then what was left of him? I turned to go inside, to lock the doors and call the cops for real this time. That's when I noticed something on the front door, carved right into the wood. Deep and uneven, just like in the treehouse. "Welcome home." I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every creak in the house sounded like someone moving upstairs. Every car passing outside made my chest tighten. I sat on the couch holding the phone in both hands, watching the front door. The carved words, "Welcome home," glowed faintly in the moonlight like they'd been burned into the wood instead of cut. I wanted to leave. Every part of me screamed to get in the car and drive until the trees disappeared in the rear view. But what if it was him? What if my brother was still alive and I just ran away again? That thought was heavier than fear. It kept me there. Around 3 a.m., the house went completely silent. Not even the fridge hummed. I realized the power was out when the clock on the microwave went dark. I stood up slowly, phone light trembling in my hand. The air had that still, pressurized feeling before a storm, the kind that makes your skin itch. I called out, "Evan?" My voice sounded small in the dark. The sound barely reached the next room before it fell flat. Then something answered. A light tap on the window. 3 knocks. Pause. 1 more. The same pattern from the treehouse. I turned toward the sound. The window above the sink was black, reflecting just my own pale face. Then, for half a second, the reflection changed. Someone was standing behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly dropped the phone. Nothing there. Just the empty kitchen, the quiet hum of my own breathing. When I looked back at the window, the reflection was gone. But on the glass, written in something smeared and greasy, were the words, "Come out." I backed away from the sink, whispering, "This isn't real. This isn't real." But then I heard it again, that faint, hollow creak from the backyard. The treehouse. The rope ladder moving. I moved to the door, my heart slamming against my ribs. Through the thin curtain, I could see the shape of it, dark against the sky. The hatch was open again, just like before. Something hung from the side, a new photo, taped to one of the rungs. I opened the door just enough to step onto the porch, my phone's flashlight cutting through the dark. The photo flapped slightly in the wind. I couldn't see the image yet, just the glossy reflection of the light. When I got close enough, I froze. It was a photo of my mom. She was standing in her kitchen, the one in her new house 2 states away, and written across the bottom in my brother's messy handwriting were the words, "She missed me too." I ran back inside and locked the door, my hands shaking so bad I could barely turn the deadbolt. My throat felt raw, my stomach twisted up. Whoever was doing this wasn't just messing with me anymore. They'd been to her house. I tried calling her, but the call went straight to voicemail. Then I called again. And again. The fourth time, someone picked up, but it wasn't her, static. Then that same small voice, barely audible. "Why did you leave me up there, Josh?" I dropped the phone. It hit the floor, still connected, the faint sound of breathing leaking through the speaker. "Stop," I whispered. "Stop doing this," but the voice kept talking. I waited. I waited so long. "You promised you'd come back." My chest felt like it was collapsing. That wasn't possible. Evan was gone. I was 13 when it happened. I'd gone inside for dinner. He wanted to stay out a little longer. By the time Dad went to call us in, he was gone. The police searched the woods for weeks. I remembered their flashlights, the dogs, the noise, but they never found him. And now this voice was saying the same words he used to say when we were kids. When I'd go inside without him, "You promised you'd come back." Something moved upstairs, a slow, dragging sound, like someone walking barefoot down the hallway. I stared at the ceiling, holding my breath. The boards creaked once, then again, closer to the stairs. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen drawer, the first thing my hand landed on. The metal felt slick against my sweaty palm. "Who's there?" I said, my voice cracking. No answer, just the faint sound of breathing. I took one step toward the stairs. The air grew colder the closer I got. That same unnatural chill I'd felt in the treehouse. My flashlight shook over the walls. Everything looked wrong, stretched by shadows. At the top of the stairs, something moved. A quick shape disappearing into the left hallway. My brother's old room. I climbed slowly, each step groaning under my weight. The door to his room was slightly open. My stomach clenched so tight it hurt. I pushed it open with the tip of the knife. The room was empty. Dust floating in the beam of my phone light. The wallpaper peeling, the old twin bed still there, the same blue sheets from when we were kids. For a second I thought maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe the stress was getting to me. Then I saw the window. The curtain was pushed aside, and something was written in the condensation on the glass. Letters traced by a finger. "Look outside." I turned toward the treehouse, the woods beyond it glowing faintly in the moonlight, and for the first time I saw him, a figure standing halfway up the rope ladder. Small, still, head tilted slightly like he was trying to recognize me. He looked exactly like my brother did the day he vanished. Same messy hair, same dirty t-shirt, except he wasn't a boy anymore. He was something wearing that memory, and he was smiling. He smiled at me like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Like every night since he disappeared had led here. Me standing in his old room, him halfway up that rope ladder. The longer I stared, the less sure I was that he was even real. The way he moved wasn't right. His head tilted too slowly like a puppet's. His shoulders didn't rise when he breathed, I whispered. "Evan?" The figure froze. Then slowly he raised one hand and waved. That broke something in me. I bolted down the stairs, out the back door and into the cold. The grass was wet, soaking through my shoes. Every step made a sharp squelch that sounded way too loud. When I reached the base of the treehouse, the ladder was still swaying. The figure was gone. The hatch above creaked. "Evan, if that's you," I called, my voice shaking. "You have to tell me right now." Silence, then a small giggle. The same giggle he used to make when we'd tell jokes up here. I wanted to cry. I started climbing. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the rope. The air smelled like earth and rust and something faintly sweet. The same scent that clung to old wood. When I reached the hatch, I paused. The flashlight beam shook across the floorboards. It looked different again. Cleaner, like someone had wiped everything down. The pile of blankets was gone. So was the writing on the wall. But in the center of the floor, nailed into the wood, was a small metal tin. I climbed up, heart hammering, and crouched next to it. The lid was old and rusty, like something from the 80s. When I opened it, I found a stack of Polaroids inside, maybe 10 or 12. Each one showed the same thing. Me, sleeping, driving, eating in a diner. Standing in front of Mom's house. The most recent one was from earlier tonight. Me staring out the window with the knife in my hand. I dropped the tin, my breath catching. The photos scattered across the floor like feathers. From above me, something whispered, "You came back." I looked up. In the corner near the roof, crouched where the boards met the branches, was a shape. Too dark to see clearly, but I could hear it breathing. "Evan?" I said again, weaker this time. It shifted slightly. Then in a trembling, broken voice it said, "You left me." My flashlight slipped out of my hand. It clattered against the floor, the light rolling across the boards until it landed on him. For half a second I saw his face clearly. It was Evan. Or it had been once. The features were right, the eyes, the hair. But the skin was pale and waxy, the lips split like old bark. He blinked out of sync like every movement took effort. "I tried to come home," he said, "but you wouldn't let me in." I shook my head. "That's not possible. You were gone. We looked for you." He tilted his head. "You didn't look hard enough." Then he crawled forward. The sound of his hands against the wood made my stomach turn. Soft and sticky like wet leaves peeling off a log. I stumbled back toward the hatch, my foot catching on one of the boards. He moved faster. The light flickered as he came closer, his face twitching like a broken video frame. I fell through the hatch and hit the ground hard. Pain shot up my leg, but I didn't stop. I ran, half limping, through the trees until the house came back into view. I didn't look back. Not once. Inside, I locked every door and grabbed my phone again. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I tried to dial 911, nothing. No service. Then the power came back on, all at once. Lights, refrigerator hum, the sound of the furnace kicking in. Too loud, too sudden. The TV in the living room flickered to life. Static at first, then an image. The view from inside the treehouse. Someone was holding a camera, panning slowly toward the open hatch, then down, toward me, standing there in the yard. I dropped the phone and backed up until I hit the wall. The image on the TV zoomed in like whoever was filming wanted me to see my own face. Then from the speakers came that same whisper. "I'm home now." The lights flickered again for a moment. The static turned into something else, a child's bedroom, ours. The same wallpaper, the same toys. In the video, Evan sat cross-legged on the floor, looking at the camera. "Say hi to Mom," he said, his voice bright, happy. Then without moving his lips, the same voice whispered through the speakers, "You shouldn't have left me up there." The TV went black. I didn't remember running out the door, but suddenly I was in the yard again, breath clouding in the cold air. I looked toward the trees. The rope ladder hung still. The hatch was open, and then, movement. Something small stepped out of the treehouse and stood on the ladder. This time I could see it clearly. The same shirt, the same jeans my brother wore the day he vanished, but the fabric was brittle, faded like it had been buried for years. His skin looked stretched too tight across his face. He climbed down one rung, then another. I whispered, "Please don't," but he just smiled. "It's okay. You don't have to be scared anymore." He dropped the rest of the way down, landed softly, almost weightless. When he stood upright, I realized he wasn't breathing. He took a step toward me. The dirt under his feet didn't crunch. "Didn't move at all, Evan," I said, tears stinging my eyes. "What happened to you?" He stopped just a few feet away. His head tilted again, that same slow, unnatural motion. "You forgot me," he said. "So I stayed here. I learned how to live in the trees." And when he smiled again, I saw the truth. His teeth weren't teeth anymore. They were splinters of wood. I stumbled backward until my shoulders hit the porch steps. My brother, whatever he'd become, just stood there smiling that broken smile. The moonlight cut across his face, showing too much detail. The thin cracks running down his cheeks weren't wrinkles. They were splits in the skin, fine and dark like dried wood. He took another step toward me. I could hear the faint sound of creaking when he moved, like his joints were bending the wrong way. "Don't come closer," I whispered. He blinked slowly, head twitching to one side. "You came back," he said, voice soft and calm like we were kids again. "We can play again, just like before." My hands shook so badly I could barely keep the flashlight steady. "Evan, you can't be..." He tilted his head the other way, that slow, snapping sound following the motion. "You left me here, I waited. I got cold, something inside me cracked. We didn't know. We looked for you, Dad, the cops, everyone." He stared blankly, the corners of his mouth twitching upward. "I called for you," he said, taking another step closer. Didn't you hear me? I could smell him now. Not rot, not death, just damp wood. Like the inside of a tree after rain, I turned and ran. I don't remember choosing a direction, just the sound of my own breath tearing through my throat. I didn't even notice I'd dropped the flashlight until the yard went black. Behind me, I could hear him moving. Fast. Not footsteps exactly, more like branches scraping together. I burst into the house, slamming the door and locking it. My whole body was trembling. I pressed my back to the door, listening. Silence. Then 3 knocks. Pause. 1 more. I slid down to the floor, shaking, crying, whispering, "Please stop. Please stop." The knocks came again, harder this time. I crawled across the floor toward the kitchen, grabbed my phone from where I'd dropped it earlier, and hit the camera app. I pointed it toward the window. Nothing there. Then the motion sensor caught something, a flicker of movement in the glass reflection. A figure standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing. When I looked back at the screen, the reflection was smiling. The TV flicked on again without sound this time. The image was the inside of the treehouse, empty. The camera shook, moving slowly toward the corner. There, against the wall, was a small wooden figure. Hand-carved. 2 tiny faces burned into the wood. One smiling. One crying. The camera tilted down. There was something scratched into the floor beneath it. J+E forever, my brother's voice came through, quiet, right next to my ear. You forgot about me. The TV went dark, something shifted in the hallway. A shadow moved past the light from the window, long, thin, stretching too far across the wall. I grabbed the knife again and stood up. "Evan," I said softly, "please, just tell me what you want." The shadow froze. Then it started to crawl, slow and jerky, across the floor toward me. I backed up until I hit the table, the edge digging into my spine. I wanted to scream but couldn't. The shadow stopped at my feet. Then the air changed, suddenly heavier, thicker. I could smell dirt, sap, wet bark. And then from directly behind me, a voice whispered, "Come see where I lived." I turned around and for a second the world blinked. The kitchen was gone. I was in the woods again, standing at the base of the treehouse. Everything was darker, even though I could still see. The trees leaned inward, too close together. The ladder swayed, even though there was no wind. "Come up," he said from above. I looked up and saw him crouched in the hatch again, just a dark outline. His eyes caught the moonlight like glass marbles. My legs moved before my mind agreed. 1 step, then another. My hands gripped the rope. The wood was soft, wet under my feet. I could smell mold. Halfway up, I saw something on one of the rungs. Another Polaroid nailed there. This one wasn't of me or Mom, it was of him. The date written on the bottom corner said last week. He was sitting up in the treehouse, staring at the camera. But behind him, in the shadows, another shape leaned over his shoulder. Taller. Watching. When I reached the top, the hatch opened on its own. The air inside was freezing. He was sitting cross-legged in the center of the floor. The wooden figure from the video was beside him. He smiled when he saw me. "I made you one too," he said, pointing. Next to the first figure was another, smaller, newer, my initials carved into the base. "I don't want it," I whispered. He frowned, eyes flicking toward the wall. "You left me alone," he said. "But it's okay. I learned how to stay alive. The trees showed me." The boards beneath him started to creak like something was moving underneath. The smell of dirt filled the air again, stronger, choking. I stumbled back toward the hatch. "I'm sorry, Evan, I'm so sorry." He smiled again, head tilting. "It's okay. You can stay now." And before I could move, something wrapped around my ankle. Rough, fibrous, a root. It coiled tighter, pulling me down. Splinters bit into my leg. I screamed and kicked, grabbing the edge of the hatch, but more roots were pushing through the cracks in the floor, curling up around my arms. "Don't fight," he whispered. "It's better here." The last thing I saw before I blacked out was his face, smiling, eyes full of something that wasn't human anymore. I woke up to sunlight. The air was warm. Birds chirped. For a second I thought it had all been a nightmare. But then I realized I wasn't in my bed. I was lying on the treehouse floor. The boards were smooth beneath me. The smell of earth was thick. I sat up slowly. The hatch was closed. The walls were covered in Polaroids, hundreds of them. Some old, some new. Every single one showed me. sleeping in different places. And in the center of the floor sat the two wooden figures, side by side. Mine now had a crack down the middle. Underneath them, carved deep into the wood, were the words, "The boy who lived in the trees." I don't remember climbing down. I don't remember leaving the woods, but sometimes late at night, I wake up and hear the creak of the ladder outside my window. 3 knocks. Pause. 1 more. And a voice, soft, familiar, just beyond the glass. "Come back up. Josh, it's better in the trees." The first thing I noticed when I stepped into the backyard was how wrong the silence felt. It wasn't the kind of quiet you get in the suburbs. It was heavier, like the air was holding its breath. The trees behind my old house stood taller than I remembered. Their branches stretched out like arms. The treehouse was still there somehow. After 20 years of rain, storms, and time, it hadn't collapsed. It looked almost preserved. The wood was darker now, the ladder warped, but it was still the same boxy structure my dad built when I was 9. The same one I stopped going into after what happened with my friend Kyle. I swallowed the knot in my throat and climbed. The rope felt brittle, the boards creaked, but muscle memory guided me up. Each step felt like stepping backward through time. When I reached the hatch, I paused. The smell hit me. Damp wood, mold, and something faintly chemical like old batteries. The inside was darker than it should have been. My phone flashlight cut through the dust, showing the same walls covered in marker drawings, rockets, stick figures, and my name carved near the window. Jason 06. I almost smiled. Almost. Then I saw it, a small red light blinking from the far corner of the ceiling. I froze. My brain scrambled to make sense of it. For a second, I thought it was a reflection from my phone, until it blinked again. A camera. Someone had mounted a tiny black lens up near the rafters. Clean, modern, definitely new. I stepped closer, my skin prickling. It wasn't dusty like everything else. The cord ran through a small hole in the wall into the tree itself. "What the hell?" I whispered. The camera made a faint mechanical click, the sound of it adjusting. I stumbled back, nearly falling through the hatch. My flashlight caught something else on the opposite wall, another small black circle. A second camera. 2. I turned around. There was a third one aimed directly at the hatch where I'd just come up, all of them blinking, watching. I got out of there fast. My heart was hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. I hit the ground running and didn't stop until I was back by the porch. I stood there staring at the treehouse from a distance, hands shaking. It looked innocent again from here. Just old wood in the sunlight, no red lights. For a second, I wondered if I'd imagined it, but the adrenaline wouldn't go away. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, zooming in on the structure, there, faint, but visible, the tiniest glint of red in the shadows. Someone had been watching that place, recently. I called the property manager who handled the rental. He told me no one had lived there for months, that the last tenants moved out early after some weird noises in the woods. When I asked if anyone had permission to install cameras, he laughed nervously. "Cameras? Out there? No, man. There's no power to that thing." He offered to come by and check it with me tomorrow, but I told him I'd handle it. I wish I'd let him come. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept picturing the blinking red lights, the perfect way they were positioned, one at the hatch, one at the far wall, one pointing right at the center of the floor. I started wondering why there were 3. It wasn't just surveillance. Whoever set them up had been recording someone inside. And the worst part? I used to hide in that exact same spot as a kid. That treehouse was my escape. When my parents fought, I'd sneak out there with a flashlight, snacks, and my Game Boy. Sometimes I'd fall asleep up there. If someone had been filming, even back then, no. I shook the thought away. Technology like that didn't exist then. Not like this. These cameras were modern, maybe installed recently. I told myself I'd go back tomorrow, bring a screwdriver, take them down, and figure out who owned them. But around 2 a.m., something woke me up. It was faint. A sound coming through the window. 3 soft clicks. Like a camera shutter. I froze in bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone was on the nightstand screen, dark. The room was pitch black except for the pale moonlight through the blinds. Then another click. Closer. I turned my head slowly toward the window. The blinds were half open. At first I didn't see anything, just trees. Then near the edge of the yard, a tiny red light blinked once, then vanished. I sat up fast, heart hammering. The sound stopped. For a long minute, there was only silence again. Then my phone buzzed, a notification. New video detected, cloud sync enabled. I blinked at it. I didn't even remember having any kind of cloud service like that. I clicked it anyway. It opened a file labeled Treehouse 101425 MP4i. Hit play. The video started with static. Then slowly the image cleared. The camera was inside the treehouse. The feed shook like someone holding it while climbing. I could hear breathing, close, steady. Then the hatch opened. The flashlight beam swept across the room, and then I saw myself climbing in. Looking around, pointing my phone light at the camera. The video was from today. I slammed my phone face down on the bed. My heart was beating so hard it hurt. The timestamp on the video was 10:42 a.m., when I'd first climbed up. But how was it already uploaded to a cloud I didn't own? Then the screen lit up again. My hands shook as I tapped it open. This time the video wasn't from the treehouse. It was from the yard, filmed from somewhere high, maybe a tree branch. It showed me sitting in bed looking at my phone. Right now. The camera moved slightly, zooming in through the half-open blinds. Then the light blinked again. 3 clicks. I didn't sleep after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blinking light in the trees. Every tiny creak in the house made me flinch. It felt like the walls were thinner than I remembered. Like the dark outside was pressing against them, listening. When the sun finally came up, I convinced myself that things would make more sense in daylight. They didn't. The yard looked normal. The trees, the grass, the old swing set rusted to hell. But when I stared long enough, I could still see it. That faint red light in the treehouse window, blinking once every few seconds, like a heartbeat. It wasn't gone, and neither was whoever was watching. I grabbed a screwdriver from Dad's old toolbox in the shed and marched straight for the treehouse ladder. The closer I got, the quieter everything felt. No birds, no bugs, just that hollow stillness that doesn't belong outdoors. I climbed fast, trying not to think. The wood felt softer today, spongy under my palms. When I reached the hatch, I shoved it open and pulled myself inside. It looked exactly the same as yesterday. The same dust, same smell, same shadows. But the cameras were gone, every single one. The holes where the screws had been were empty. The cords were ripped out, leaving jagged splinters around the edges. I sat there for a second, breathing hard. I hadn't heard anyone out here all night, but somehow, someone had come back and taken them. Then I noticed something on the wall that hadn't been there before. A piece of paper, pinned right above where one of the cameras had been. On it, in shaky handwriting, were 3 words, "Stop looking back." I don't know how long I sat there. My brain couldn't decide whether to be terrified or angry. I ripped the paper down and stuffed it into my pocket. Then I started searching. Behind the boards, under the floor planks, anywhere a cord could run. That's when I found the second note. It was tucked into a small hole behind one of the wall panels. This one wasn't written. It was printed. Neat, sharp letters, camera 04 disconnected. My stomach dropped. If there was a camera 04, that meant there had been more than 3. I looked around again, and that's when I saw the outline of a small panel in the floor. It wasn't there when I was a kid. A perfect square cut into the board, sealed with new nails. The wood around it looked cleaner, newer. I pried it open with the screwdriver. Inside was a black metal box. No brand, no labels, and just a blinking green light and a small antenna. I pulled it out and turned it over. The label underneath said, "Signal Relay, active," and right under that, a handwritten tag taped to the side. Property of JSI Froze. Those were my initials. The screwdriver slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a loud clatter. I backed away from the box, heart pounding. This didn't make any sense. I hadn't been here in years. I didn't even know how to install something like that. But the note on the wall, the cameras, the name, everything felt personal, like whoever set this up wanted me to find it. I took out my phone and snapped pictures of everything, the box, the tag, the empty holes. When I tried to send them to my email, I noticed something strange. The Wi-Fi icon was full, Strong signal, except there wasn't supposed to be Wi-Fi here. The house didn't even have internet service. I opened the network list, only one name appeared. Treehouse Net. Every part of me said to leave. To burn the box, get in my car, and drive away. But curiosity is a stupid, dangerous thing. I tapped on the network and waited. It connected instantly. Then, without me opening anything, a browser window popped up. A black screen with white text. "Welcome back, Jason. Would you like to continue your session?" My thumb hovered over the screen. I should have hit no. Instead, I tapped yes. The screen blinked, then loaded a folder directory. Archive 2006. The list of video files stretched down the screen. Each one had a date, from June through August 2006. That was the summer Kyle disappeared. My stomach twisted so hard I almost threw up. Kyle was my best friend. We were both 9, inseparable. He came over nearly every day. One night he told his parents he was staying at my place, but I told mine I was staying at his. We thought we'd get away with it. When morning came, Kyle was gone. The police searched for weeks. They found his bike near the creek. No footprints, no sign of a struggle. Just gone, and now, staring at those dates on the screen, something deep in my memory started to wake up. Something I didn't want to remember. I tapped the first file. The video loaded instantly. It was black and white, grainy but clear enough to see the inside of the treehouse. 2 kids sat on the floor. One of them was me. The other was Kyle. We were playing cards, laughing. Then Kyle looked at the camera, directly at it. He frowned. "Who's that?" he asked. The camera moved slightly, like it had been adjusting focus. Then the video cut to static. I tapped the next file. This one started in darkness. Then the flashlight came on, shaking as someone climbed through the hatch. The angle changed, and I saw myself again, older, maybe 14. I was cleaning the floor, moving boards, saying something I couldn't quite make out. Then I looked straight at the camera. "Still works," I said softly. "They'll never know." The video cut out. I dropped the phone. My chest felt like it was collapsing. That couldn't have been me. I would have remembered that. I should have remembered that. The metal box beside me started to hum. The green light began blinking faster. My phone screen lit up again on its own. A new notification popped up. Live feed started. Camera 05I looked around the treehouse, but there were no cameras left. Just shadows. Then I realized where it was coming from. The small hole near the hatch where the cord disappeared into the tree. I leaned closer. From deep inside the wood came the faint sound of static. Then a voice, "Welcome back, Jason." For a long time I didn't move. That voice, it was faint, warped by static, but it was mine. "Welcome back, Jason." The words repeated slower this time, drawn out, almost curious. I crouched beside the hatch, staring into the hole where the sound was coming from. It was so dark down there it felt bottomless. The whisper of static came again, then a sharp click like an old tape recorder stopping. Then silence. The kind that hurts. I stood up too fast and hit my head on the low ceiling. My pulse was hammering in my ears. I grabbed the metal relay box, shoved it under my arm, and climbed down the ladder as fast as I could. By the time I hit the ground, I was shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. Back in the house, I dumped the relay box on the kitchen counter. The green light was still blinking. I tried to pull the batteries out, but there weren't any. The back was sealed tight. No screws, no ports. Nothing. I covered it with a towel and sat at the table, trying to breathe. That's when my phone buzzed again. Treehouse Net. Connection lost, then, immediately after. Reconnecting. I turned off Wi-Fi, powered off my phone completely. But even with it off, I could still hear something faint coming from inside the towel, like whispering through static. I left it there and went to the living room. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like someone shifting weight. Every shadow felt occupied. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Not in the way you feel when someone's watching, but in the way you feel when someone's inside the walls. By evening, I'd worked up enough nerve to go through my dad's old papers. He built that treehouse himself. Maybe there was something, plans, wiring, anything that could explain what I'd found. I tore through boxes in the attic, choking on dust. Old tax forms, photos, a couple of my report cards. Then near the bottom of one box, I found a manila folder labeled in my dad's messy handwriting. Treehouse, Nonners, 2006. My heart jumped. Inside were blueprints. Rough sketches mostly. But one page had something strange. A layout that didn't match the treehouse I remembered. It showed a basement level, a space marked beneath the floorboards, small, circular, accessible by a service hatch. I stared at it, my brain trying to convince me it wasn't possible. The treehouse didn't have a basement. It was a few planks of wood nailed to a trunk, but the blueprint was dated and signed. At the bottom, in red pen, Dad had written, "Keep sealed." Don't let Jason near this. I don't know what made me go back out there that night. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I just wanted proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The forest was pitch black, but I didn't use the flashlight. My eyes adjusted to the faint silver of the moon. Every branch looked like it was leaning toward me. When I reached the base of the treehouse, I stopped. There was a faint sound coming from above, the soft whir of machinery. I climbed halfway up, the ladder swayed. Something brushed my shoulder, like a vine or a cord. I looked down. Nothing there. When I pulled myself through the hatch, the air felt colder than outside. The towel I'd left on the relay box was gone. The box itself sat in the center of the floor, green light steady now. Beside it, a new note. Playback ready. My phone buzzed in my pocket before I could react. Screen black, no power, but still vibrating. Then, without touching it, it lit up on its own. A video started playing. The camera angle was high. From one of the old mounts in the corner, it showed a boy in 9, maybe 10, sitting cross-legged on the floor. Me. There was another kid, too, facing away from the camera. Kyle, I could hear my own voice on the recording. "Let's make a video." "Just for us," Kyle laughed. "We don't have a camera." Then I said something that made my skin crawl. "We do now." The footage glitched. Kyle turned around to face me, and for a fraction of a second his face blurred like the image had been recorded through water. Then he crawled toward the camera. Too close. Static burst across the screen. The next frame was empty. No Kyle. Just me sitting alone, staring at the floor. My hand was resting on something dark beside me. The relay box, the same one sitting in front of me now. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor and kept playing, the audio warping into a distorted hum that didn't sound like speech anymore. The relay box's light switched from green to red. Then the whispering returned. "Welcome back." "Jason." The floorboards trembled beneath me. Dust rained down from the rafters. Something was moving under the wood. Slow. Shifting. I crawled to the hatch, but it slammed shut on its own, the sound echoing through the treehouse like a gunshot. I clawed at it, yanking, but it wouldn't budge. The whispering got louder, filling the whole space, hundreds of voices now, layered over each other. I pressed my ear to the floor, and beneath the chaos, one voice stood out, a boy's voice. "Help me." I backed away, gasping, staring at the boards. My flashlight beam trembled as I pointed it down. The wood looked different now, darker, softer, almost breathing. There was a line running down the middle like a lid, a hatch I'd never noticed before, the same one from my dad's blueprint. Every cell in my body screamed not to open it, but I did. The hinges groaned, releasing a cold rush of air that smelled like dirt and metal. My light barely reached the bottom, maybe 5 feet down, and there, sitting against the roots, was a small wooden chair, a camera bolted to the wall in front of it, and something in the chair, something small, something wearing a decayed red hoodie. For a long time I couldn't move. The smell was the first thing that hit me. Not rot, not exactly. It was old wood and earth and something faintly sweet like sap mixed with copper, the kind of smell that sticks to your throat. I leaned over the open hatch, light trembling in my hand. The beam barely reached the thing in the chair. It wasn't a thing. It was a body, small, curled slightly forward, head bowed. A child's skeleton, half wrapped in fabric that might have once been red. Kyle's hoodie. My mind went blank. My legs folded under me and I dropped to my knees beside the opening. For a second, everything went silent. Then I heard it again, that faint electric hum from the relay box, steady as a heartbeat. The camera on the wall below the body flickered. Its red light blinked once. I don't remember climbing down, but suddenly my boots hit the dirt floor. The air down there was freezing, wet against my skin. The camera was aimed directly at the chair. Its cord ran up through the wall, into the tree itself. The same cord I'd seen yesterday. My flashlight caught something carved into the wood behind the skeleton. 2 sets of initials, JS plus KM, and beneath it, a single word, forever. My throat closed up. I reached out without thinking, hand shaking, and touched the edge of the chair. The wood felt warm, almost pulsing. The second my skin brushed it, the camera above the body whirred. Then by click, the relay box upstairs beeped once, a small monitor. I hadn't noticed before, half buried in the dirt wall, flickered to life. Static. Then a video feed. It showed me standing there. Right now. But there was something else in the frame. Behind me. I spun around, nearly tripping over the uneven floor. Nothing there. When I turned back to the screen, the angle had changed. It was closer now, zooming in on my face. Then, over the static, a voice whispered, "Still works." My own voice. The feed glitched again. For a second, the image flickered between me and another me, younger, wearing a torn t-shirt, smiling directly into the camera. He raised his hand and pointed downward. I followed the gesture. At the skeleton's feet, half buried in dirt, something small and rectangular stuck out. I crouched, brushing soil away. My fingers hit metal. It was another relay box, older, rusted, same design. The label still faintly visible. Prototype Unit 00L1. JSI stumbled backward, knocking over the chair. The skeleton slumped sideways, ribs cracking as it hit the floor. The whispering started again, louder now from everywhere at once. The relay box upstairs. The camera, the screen. You said forever. Don't look away. Keep recording. I pressed my hands over my ears, screaming, but it didn't stop. Then, all at once, silence. The red light on the camera went dark. For a second, everything was still. Then a faint creaking came from above, the sound of the hatch closing. I ran to the ladder, shining my light upward. The opening was already sealed shut. Something moved on the other side. Slow. Deliberate. A shadow passed across the seam of light. I slammed my shoulder into it. Nothing. Then, through the wood, a single knock. Pause. 3 more. I don't know how long I kept pushing at that hatch. My flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in total darkness. The air was thick, damp, hard to breathe. Somewhere behind me, the relay box clicked again. A faint glow filled the space. The monitor had turned back on, the screen showing the treehouse interior above me. The camera angle was high, pointing at the floor hatch, the same one trapping me down here, and standing above it was a boy. He looked 9 years old. Dirty sneakers, brown hair sticking up at odd angles. He looked exactly like me at that age. He crouched over the hatch, tilting his head. Then he smiled. I could hear his voice through the speakers, faint but clear. "You can stay now. It's better here." The screen went black. Then another image appeared. The woods outside the treehouse. The camera panned slowly like someone walking through the yard. It stopped on the house, my old house. The living room window glowed faintly from the lamp I'd left on. The feed zoomed in until the glass filled the frame. Through the window, I could see myself, or at least someone who looked like me, sitting at the table, staring at the towel-covered relay box. He reached out and lifted the towel. The box blinked red. The air around me began to hum again. The dirt at my feet started to shift, tiny pebbles rolling toward the chair. Roots crept through the cracks in the walls, wrapping around the camera wires, pulsing with faint light. The skeleton beside me moved just slightly, as if settling. Then the relay box spoke one last time. Session complete. New subject initialized. The red light went steady. I felt a pull in my chest, heavy and cold. My vision blurred, ears ringing. I tried to grab the ladder, but my hand slipped. The wood slick, almost breathing beneath my palm. Something whispered my name from right behind me. Jason. Then darkness. When I woke up, I was sitting in the treehouse. Sunlight poured through the window. The air smelled clean again. For a moment, I thought it was morning, that maybe I'd passed out and dreamed everything. But then I saw the relay box sitting in front of me, still glowing. Next to it lay a folded note. I picked it up with shaking hands. 4 words: Camera 06, active feed. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and the screen showed a live video, a high, fixed angle, recording the inside of the treehouse me, sitting there, holding the note, staring into the camera, and right before the feed cut to black, I saw movement in the corner, a small figure, red hoodie, stepping into frame. I didn't notice the treehouse the first time I walked the property. Maybe because I was focused on the house itself. The cracked foundation, the sagging porch, the wild tangle of weeds that used to be a yard. I'd bought the place for cheap through a foreclosure auction, thinking it'd be a fun renovation project. It sat on 5 acres of wooded land just outside of town, far enough to feel isolated, but close enough that I could pretend I wasn't alone. The listing mentioned dense tree coverage and private woodland features. What it didn't mention was a structure deep in those woods that wasn't supposed to exist. I only found it 3 days later, when I started walking the perimeter to mark fence lines. I had my phone open with the GIS property map, those online overlays that show everything: boundaries, old trails, any registered structures. The satellite view showed my house, the shed, and a clear ring of trees behind it. No treehouse. No platform, nothing, but there it was. It stood maybe 50 yards off the main clearing, tall, wide, too well built to be a kid's project. The wood looked new, unweathered. The base sat high, 20 feet off the ground, supported by thick beams that merged seamlessly with the trunk of an old oak. The design was wrong somehow. Not a square, not quite round either. More like an octagon, but uneven, the corners slightly bent inwards. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. A crow startled from a nearby branch, flapping hard enough to rattle the leaves. When I walked closer, the air got cooler. The smell changed too, from damp leaves and soil to something sharper, like iron and ozone after lightning. The latter wasn't rope or nailed boards. It was built right into the trunk, as if the wood itself had grown into evenly spaced steps. I ran my hand along one. It was smooth, almost polished, no visible nails or cuts. That was when I noticed there were no seams anywhere. The entire thing, and platform, supports, walls, looked like it had grown that way. I told myself it was just some old custom carpentry job, maybe built decades ago and restored by a previous owner. But the weird part was that it wasn't on any record. No building permit, no footprint, no satellite image. Even stranger, when I checked the map again, the GPS dot on my phone didn't match reality. It showed me standing 30 feet south of where I actually was, like the map didn't know this place existed. I stood at the base, staring up. The hatch was closed, a simple square cut into the floor above. That's when I heard it, a faint tapping sound from inside. 3 quick knocks. Pause. 1 more. It echoed through the hollow trunk. I froze, waiting. No movement, no rustle, just that faint metallic hum in the air again. Then I realized the tapping was repeating itself. Same rhythm, same pauses. Like it wasn't random, almost like a pattern. I don't know why I climbed. Curiosity's a dumb reason to ignore every instinct screaming don't. But I needed to see what was inside. Needed to prove it was just some weird leftover project and not whatever my brain was suggesting. The steps were slick but solid. My palms picked up a faint residue, something like sap but sticky, colder. When I reached the hatch, I hesitated. My reflection looked warped in the metal latch like the curve of a spoon. I pushed it open. The smell hit me again. Sharp, electric. The inside was dim but not dark. Sunlight filtered through narrow slits along the walls. Everything was made of the same smooth wood, curved like bone. There was no furniture, no trash, no signs of kids ever using it. Just an empty space and a single post in the center, waist high, with a flat top. On that post sat an old Polaroid camera. It was clean, new looking, like someone had just placed it there. I took a slow step forward, phone flashlight on. The beam hit the walls and caught faint carvings, lines, arcs, shapes that reminded me of maps or blueprints, except they twisted in ways that didn't make sense. When I got close to the camera, I saw there was a fresh photo sticking out of it, half developed. My stomach dropped when I realized what it was. It was me, standing at the base of the ladder. My hands were still at my sides in the exact position they'd been when I first looked up. The image was still developing, the leaves behind me sharpening into focus as I stared down at it. That shouldn't have been possible. I hadn't heard the shudder, hadn't seen a flash. I backed away, heart pounding. The wooden floor creaked once, just enough to remind me there was weight up here, but I was alone. Or at least, I thought I was. Then the hatch slammed shut. The sound cracked through the air so hard it made my ears ring. I ran to it, pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The latch felt fused hot under my fingers. The light through the slits began to fade like clouds were moving in, but when I glanced out, the trees were still. The world outside didn't look darker, just farther away, like the windows were showing something else entirely. The floor vibrated softly beneath my shoes. From the post, the Polaroid camera clicked once. Another photo began to slide out. I didn't move. Couldn't. When the image formed, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't of me this time. It was of the treehouse, but not from outside, from above, like something higher in the trees was looking down at both of us. I dropped the photo and yanked at the hatch again, this time with both hands. It came free suddenly, and I nearly fell through the opening. When my feet hit the ground, I sprinted back toward the clearing, not looking back once. The air outside felt normal again. The sounds came back. Wind, birds, distant cars. I stopped at the edge of the yard and turned around. The treehouse looked small again. Harmless. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a notification from an app I didn't recognize. New media synced. Treehouse Chem 01I opened it. There was a single file, a photo. It was the one of me standing at the base of the ladder, except this time, in the background, halfway hidden in the shadows, there was another figure standing in the window looking down. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo, the one of me at the base of the tree with that figure in the window. I'd zoomed in until the pixels broke apart, but the shape stayed the same. Tall, narrow, face turned slightly toward the camera. Whatever it was. It had been standing right above me the whole time. By 3 a.m., I'd convinced myself it was just a trick of the light. Some smudge on the camera lens, maybe a reflection, but I couldn't explain the part that really mattered. I'd never taken that photo, and I didn't have any app called Treehouse Cam. By morning, I decided to call the county assessor's office. Maybe it was just an unmapped hunting platform or something the last owner built without a permit. The woman who answered sounded bored, clicking through her keyboard while I explained. "Address?" she asked. I gave it a pause. More clicking. Then, "Sir, there are no secondary structures registered on that parcel. You sure it's on your land?" "Yes, it's about 50 yards north of the house." "Then that can't be your lot. The northern boundary ends 30 yards from your back door. Beyond that's public forest land," I frowned. "No, that can't be right. I walked it myself. The fence line, there's no fence on record either." She sounded confused now, a little irritated. "Hang on, I can pull up the last survey map." "Just a second." Silence. Then her voice came back, quiet and careful. "You said there's a structure in the trees?" "Yeah, can you describe it?" I told her. The shape, the color, the ladder that looked like part of the trunk. When I finished, she said something I'll never forget. "Sir, that's impossible." "Why?" "Because that's the same description a surveyor gave in 1997. He filed a report about an unlisted structure matching that description. The problem is, what? He never turned the report in. He disappeared before he left the site. I hung up, I don't know why, but hearing that made the whole thing feel heavier, like it had a history now. I walked out to the yard again, but the air felt different. Colder, even in daylight. The woods looked the same, but every shadow felt too deep. I told myself I'd stay away. Just leave it. But by afternoon I was back out there, phone in hand, taking pictures, measuring the distance, trying to prove it was real. Only, the treehouse was gone. The tree was still there. Same twisted oak, but the structure wasn't. No ladder, no hatch, no platform, just empty branches. My phone map still glitched, though. the GPS dot jittering back and forth like it couldn't decide where I was standing. I circled the tree 3 times, scanning upward. Nothing, not even nail holes. It was like it had never existed. When I got back to the house, I opened my camera roll. The photos I'd taken yesterday, the ones of the treehouse, the Polaroid, the ladder, were all black. Every single one, except for the last photo, the one from Treehouse Cam. That one had changed. The figure in the window wasn't there anymore. Instead, the camera seemed closer, angled slightly downward, like whoever was holding it had stepped out of the treehouse and moved toward me. And in the bottom corner of the frame, behind my shoulder, there was another shape, a second person. I tried to shake it off, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I went through the files on my phone, looking for the strange app, but it wasn't there. No Treehouse Cam, no media sync, nothing. But when I searched my file manager, there was a hidden folder, offline storage.tree. Inside were a dozen images. All of me, some from yesterday, some older. I recognized the clothes and shirts I hadn't worn in years. One photo was of me standing at the kitchen counter. Another was from my bedroom window, my back turned to the camera, and then at the bottom, a video file. I tapped it open before I could stop myself. It was dark at first, just faint breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot. Then the camera tilted up, showing a silhouette ahead, me walking toward the treehouse. The perspective was from behind. Whoever filmed it had been following me the entire time. The moment the video ended, my phone buzzed again. A new message notification, no contact name, do you see it now? I froze, staring at the screen. The typing bubble appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. You weren't supposed to find it yet. I swallowed hard. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Who is this? I typed. The reply came instantly. You left it unfinished. Then, another. Come back. The message app crashed. The screen glitched, flickering white for a second. When it cleared, my wallpaper was gone, replaced by the photo of the treehouse. Only now, the figure in the window was waving. That night, I locked every door and window. I dragged a chair under the front door handle, turned off every light, and sat on the floor with a kitchen knife in my hand. The house made its usual nighttime noises, wood expanding, air shifting through vents, but every single one sounded like footsteps. Around midnight, I heard something scrape along the siding, a slow, deliberate drag of wood against wood, then 3 knocks on the back door. Pause. 1 more. I didn't move, didn't breathe. When I finally looked, the door window was black and too dark to see through. Then faintly the outline of a hand pressed against the glass. It was small, childlike, and right before it faded, the surface fogged over with words traced by a fingertip. Maps wrong. The next morning, I checked the property map again. My land boundary had changed. The line now extended another 50 yards north, right where the treehouse had been. And in the new satellite image, there it was again, perfectly clear, the treehouse back on the map. And in the center of its roof, a small dark shape standing perfectly still. By the 3rd day, I wasn't pretending anymore. Something was wrong with that land. It wasn't just fear now, it was confusion, a deep kind that makes you question your own memory. I'd walked the property enough times to know every inch of it. I'd even measured the fence posts myself, but the new map said otherwise. The boundaries had changed again overnight. I checked on my laptop first, still different. Then I grabbed an old paper plat map from the county records I'd printed when I first bought the place. Same coordinates, same shape, but the lines didn't match anymore. The property was growing, roughly 50 yards a day, and always north, always toward the woods, always toward the treehouse. I tried to call the assessor's office again, but the line just rang. When I tried from my phone, it didn't even connect, and just static. The weirdest part? My phone's compass spun whenever I stepped near the tree line. GPS would lag or blink out entirely. I thought about leaving, packing up and selling the house, cutting my losses. But the market listing for my address was gone. I checked every site, Zillow, Redfin, even the county tax portal. Search result, no such property found. That's when I realized something chilling. If my house wasn't on record anymore, did I technically live nowhere? Around dusk, I went out again. I told myself it was to get proof, video evidence, maybe something I could show someone. But deep down, I think I just wanted to know how far it had spread. The air felt heavier than before, like humidity and static mixed. The closer I got to where the treehouse had stood, the more my skin prickled. The trees didn't look right either. They weren't spaced the same way. Paths that used to curve now went straight, and when I reached the clearing, it was back. Exactly where it had been the first time. Same smooth wood. Same uneven octagonal shape, same faint metallic smell. Only now, there were two of them. The original, so and another one about 20 feet to the left. Half hidden by branches. A mirror copy. I stood there, breath catching in my throat, trying to make sense of it. The second one looked newer, the wood lighter in color, but the latter was still fused into the trunk the same way, the steps seamlessly part of the tree. Then I heard something from above, the unmistakable sound of a shutter click. I didn't look up right away. My body went cold before my mind caught up. When I finally did, I saw a faint red light blink behind one of the narrow wall slits. Someone, or something, was taking photos again. I pulled my phone out, switched to video, and started recording. That's when both structures made a noise at once. A deep, low groan, wood flexing like something alive. Then, a faint whisper of leaves moving though there was no wind. I backed up slowly, keeping my camera steady. The second treehouse flickered. Not a trick of the light. It literally shimmered, its edges stuttering in and out of focus. For a split second, I could see through it, branches behind it shifting faintly. Before the wood snapped back into visibility, the air around me warped. The smell of ozone thick, and from both treehouses, I heard that tapping again. 3 knocks. Pause. 1. More perfectly synchronized, that rhythm was burned into my head now. I started to run, but the ground felt off, softer, like the earth itself was pulsing beneath my boots. I reached the clearing's edge and turned back. The treehouses were closer now, closer than they should have been, like they'd moved. I don't remember getting inside my house. 1 minute I was in the woods, the next I was slamming the front door shut behind me, lungs burning. I double-checked the locks, drew the curtains, and went straight for my laptop. I needed to see that satellite image again. When the map loaded, my chest tightened. There weren't 2 treehouses anymore. There were 3, and they formed a perfect triangle around the house. The map view updated again, the refresh icon spinning like it couldn't keep up. Each time it blinked, the structures looked closer to the house, 20 yards, then 15, until the final image showed one right behind the property line, practically at the edge of my backyard. That's when I heard it, a soft click from inside the house. I turned slowly. The sound came, again at the shutter of a camera. My hands went numb. I scanned the living room, the kitchen, every corner. Then faintly, I saw a reflection in the glass of the front window. A red light. Blinking. I moved closer. It was small, embedded near the window frame, like a pinhole lens. There was another one near the ceiling vent, and another above the door. Each one pulsed faintly red, perfectly timed, in click, blink, silence. Then my phone buzzed. Another message. "We told you to stay out," I typed back, fingers trembling. "Who are you?" The reply came instantly. "We're already here." I ran outside. I don't even remember grabbing my shoes. I just bolted into the yard, breath sharp in my throat. The woods were darker than they should have been. Wrong dark, like the color had drained out of the air. I looked up, and the trees weren't still. They were leaning, every trunk bent slightly toward the house, and in the space between them faint lights glowed. Not lanterns, not fireflies. Small pulsing red dots, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, like eyes. I turned toward the nearest one. The light blinked twice, then a faint mechanical click echoed back, the sound of a camera shutter. All of them started clicking, in unison. I screamed and ran back to the house, but when I reached the porch, I froze. The front door was open, and inside, in the dim hallway light, something was moving, not a person, not quite. It was tall, stretched wrong, like its limbs had learned how to imitate walking but hadn't mastered it. Its skin was the same color as the treehouse wood, smooth, pale, seamless. and where its face should have been, there was just a single red light blinking. Then behind it, another light blinked on, and another, until the entire doorway pulsed with them. I didn't think. I just ran, back through the yard into the woods and anywhere away from that house. I didn't care about direction anymore, just distance. Every few seconds I glanced back and those faint red blinks still pulsed in the dark, fading slowly behind me like embers. The woods were wrong. The air didn't move. No wind, no insects, just that faint low hum, like electricity running through the trees themselves. I tripped on a root and hit the ground hard, breath punching out of me. When I pushed myself up, I saw it. Another treehouse. Only this one wasn't in a tree. It was half sunken into the earth, tilted like a shipwreck, its wooden frame folding into itself. The same smooth surfaces, the same octagonal shape, but rotting from the bottom up. Something dripped from one corner, thick, black sap pooling into the dirt, and through the open hatch. Faint red light flickered. I should have run, but curiosity or terror or something in between pulled me closer. Inside, the walls were covered with hundreds of Polaroid photos, overlapping, curling, some half melted by moisture. I pulled one off the wall and nearly dropped it. It was a picture of me, standing exactly where I was now, staring into the hatch. Another photo showed me walking through the woods, mouth open mid-breath. Another, me asleep in bed, dozens of them, each one dated, each time stamped tomorrow. The smell of iron and sap filled my lungs. I turned toward the hatch. The air shimmered above it like heat rising from asphalt. And for a split second, I saw movement, a shape crawling up from the dark below, dragging itself hand over hand, slow and deliberate. I bolted out the side, branches slashing at my arms, my breath ragged. I didn't stop running until I saw the faint outline of my house again through the trees. Only, it wasn't my house, not exactly. It looked copied. The walls were there, but softer around the edges, like it had been rebuilt from memory. The roof sagged too low. The windows were slightly the wrong shape, taller, narrower, and the front door was wide open. The air around it buzzed faintly, like static. Inside, red lights pulsed slowly, one after another. The rhythm of the knocks. 3 short, 1 long, I whispered to myself. This isn't real. This isn't my house. But the moment I stepped closer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. No service, just one notification. Treehouse cam. Live feed started. The screen showed the camera view from the woods, facing the replica house. The image glitched once, then stabilized. Someone went or something while it was inside. A tall silhouette moved through the hallway, slow, deliberate. Pausing every few steps, I turned toward the house again, and the front window lit up. The figure was there now, behind the glass, watching me. And when it raised its arm, I realized it was holding a camera. It lifted the camera to where its face should have been. Flash. White light. For a second, I couldn't see. When my vision came back, the house was gone. Just trees again, silent, empty. I spun around, gasping for air, and my phone vibrated violently in my hand. The screen was flashing lines of text I didn't type. Boundary updated, coordinates added, new structure registered. The map app opened on its own. My location dot blinked in the middle of the woods. Around it, a ring of glowing red icons appeared, dozens of them, each one labeled Treehouse 01, Treehouse 02, Treehouse 03 up to Treehouse 12. They were everywhere now. I stumbled backward until I hit something solid, a tree trunk. No, not a tree. Wood. Yes, but flat. I turned and realized I was standing against a wall and smooth, seamless, like the side of one of the structures, except I hadn't seen it there seconds ago. The wall shifted. A faint breath moved through the wood, like air passing between lungs. Then the center of it opened, a narrow seam widening silently. A doorway. Inside was red light, pulsing faintly. The same rhythm again. 3 beats. Pause. 1. I stepped inside. The space was small, maybe 6 feet across, empty, except for a single wooden chair in the middle. On it sat another Polaroid camera. This one was pointed directly at me. The film inside was still warm, faintly humming. I picked it up, half expecting another picture to slide out. But instead, something clicked beneath my feet. The walls began to move. They folded inward, slow, methodical, closing the room in around me. I dropped the camera and slammed my hands against the wood. It flexed soft and damp, pulsing faintly under my palms like skin. The red light grew brighter, and beneath it a low voice whispered, layered and distant, "You built this, you forgot. We are finishing it." My vision blurred. The air thickened, tasting like rust and sap. My ears rang so hard I could barely hear. When I looked down, the Polaroid camera on the chair was gone. In its place sat a photo, freshly printed. It was me, standing inside this exact space, hand pressed against the wall, face twisted in fear. Behind me in the image, another figure was visible, same height, same clothes, same expression, except it was smiling. The walls stopped moving. Silence fell. Then, from somewhere far above, a faint scraping sound, like wood on wood. I realized it was coming from outside. Something was building. Something large. I pushed against the wall again and it gave way suddenly. I fell backward out into the open air. Only it wasn't night anymore. The sun was out, pale and thin, like it hadn't fully risen. All around me, the woods had changed. Every tree had grown beams, planks, walls, pieces of structures sprouting from their sides like tumors. Hundreds of half-formed treehouses stretching into the distance. And in the center of them all stood the original, perfect, gleaming, seamless, waiting. I looked at my phone one last time. The map was blank. No property lines, no roads, just a single message across the screen, "Welcome to the new grid." Then the battery died. I don't know how long I stood there staring at that impossible forest. Every tree was becoming something else. Wooden veins wrapping around trunks, platforms forming midair, walls knitting together like muscle. The sound was deafening. Hundreds of creaks and groans blending into a single heartbeat. The forest was building itself, and I was standing in the middle of it. The air shimmered with dust and sap and that metallic tang I'd started to associate with the tree houses. I could taste it in the back of my throat. I started running, but no matter which way I turned, the scene never changed. Tree houses at every angle, always the same distance away, always pulsing red light somewhere. Inside, it was like running through a reflection of the same place over and over. I stumbled into a clearing and stopped. In the center stood the first one, the original treehouse. I recognized it instantly. The same uneven walls, same slanted hatch. The only difference was that now it looked alive. The wood rippled faintly, breathing. Roots had grown down from the platform, coiling into the soil like veins. And hanging from those roots, tied by long threads of bark, were dozens of Polaroids. They turned slowly in the wind, faces catching the light. All of them were of me. Different expressions, different ages. One as a kid, barefoot and grinning. Another from last week. Another from tomorrow's date. Each one had a black number scrawled in the corner. I stepped closer to read the nearest one. 47, then the next. So 48 and on, until I reached the last photo at the base of the tree, 50 in it. I was standing right where I was now, facing the treehouse. But behind me in the photo was someone else, or maybe something else. A second figure, identical to me. Smiling, a voice echoed from above. Thin and warped through the wood. 50. It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It was inside my head as much as the air. 50 hosts, 50 frames, grid complete. The red light inside the treehouse flickered brighter, pulsing faster, syncing with the rhythm of my heartbeat. Something moved behind the slits, a shadow pacing slowly, then stopping right at the center window. I could see the outline now, human but off. Too tall, too narrow, its head tilted slightly as if studying me. And then it raised an arm, long and jointless, and pointed down, at me. The ground vibrated. The soil at my feet began to crack, roots pushing through, coiling up my legs like ropes. I tried to run, but the more I pulled, the tighter they held. The treehouse groaned. Wood shifting, the hatch above opened. Inside, something climbed down. It moved like a reflection in water, slow, distorted, rippling. Each limb folded and stretched like it didn't belong to bones. When it stepped onto the ground, it was me. Perfectly. Same clothes. Same cuts on my arm from the branches. Same terrified face, except its eyes weren't mine. They were solid black, the surface reflecting faint red light. I tried to speak, but my voice came out a whisper. "What are you?" It smiled. My smile, crooked, uncertain art, and said, "You built this." I shook my head violently. "No, you left it unfinished." The roots tightened around my legs. The thing stepped closer, head tilted like it was listening. "You drew it first," it said, "when you were a kid. The treehouse you wanted. The one that would never rot." Memories crashed back. Blueprints I'd sketched on notebook paper. Wild plans I'd told my dad about. A treehouse that would last forever. Alive, I'd said. So it could fix itself. Hadn't thought about that in years. The copy stopped inches from me. "I did the rest," it said. Then it reached out and pressed its palm against my chest. The pain hit like electricity. My vision flared white. The smell of ozone filled my head. Images flashed behind my eyes. Blueprints made of roots and veins, my property lines drawn in blood instead of ink. The land itself rearranging, rewriting coordinates, swallowing structures whole. When I could see again, the copy was gone. So were the roots. The forest was silent again. I stumbled backward, disoriented, and realized I was standing at the edge of my yard. The house, my real house, was there. Normal. No red lights, no tree houses, just early morning sunlight. I started laughing, shaking, maybe crying. I don't even know. It was over. Or I thought it was. When I went inside, my phone sat on the counter, face down. I hadn't brought it with me. The screen was cracked but still glowing faintly. A notification blinked. New file. Treehouse Cam Archive. I opened it. There was one image, a satellite view of my property. In the center of the photo, my house was visible. So was the clearing. And just beyond the trees, faint but unmistakable, was a new outline, a square foundation forming in the earth. Labeled Treehouse 51. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Final upload complete. Then another line appeared. Letter by letter. "Welcome back, Jason." I froze. No one should have known that name. I'd never used it in any of my files. But that's what the voice in the walls had called me before. Jason. I set the phone down slowly. Heart hammering. From outside came the faintest sound, creaking wood like boards settling. Then, very softly, 3 knocks. Pause. 1. It came from the attic. I climbed the stairs, every step groaning. The air was still, cold enough that my breath fogged. When I reached the top, I stopped. There, in the far corner, stood a small model, a miniature version of the treehouse, perfectly built. Its walls pulsed faintly red, and inside, through one of the tiny windows, I could see movement. A figure pacing, the size of an insect. But human. I bent closer. It stopped moving. Then it looked up, straight at me, and smiled. I first saw the light the night the power went out. Our cabin sat on the edge of a dense stretch of forest, the kind that swallows sound after dark. It was late October, cold enough that the air burned a little when you breathed too deeply. I'd been staying there alone for a few weeks, clearing out my uncle's place after he passed, and I'd gotten used to the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're underwater. But that night, when everything went black, the woods felt alive. I was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, when the lights cut out with a sharp pop. The generator hadn't kicked in yet, and for a few seconds I just sat there, frozen, listening. No hum of the fridge, no ticking clock. Just the wind outside, soft but constant, like something breathing against the walls. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped to the window. That's when I saw it. A single point of white light deep in the woods behind the cabin. It was small, steady, not moving, not flickering. Just there. At first I thought it was someone's lantern, maybe a hiker who got lost. But the more I stared, the more wrong it felt. It wasn't warm like a firelight. It wasn't cool like a phone screen. It was flat, perfect white, like the kind of glow you'd see from a kid's nightlight plugged into a wall socket. Except it was floating. I should have stayed inside. That's what I tell myself now. But curiosity is a powerful thing, especially when it comes with loneliness. I pulled on my coat, grabbed the flashlight, and stepped out into the yard. The air hit me instantly, damp, cold, sharp, with the smell of pine and dirt. The woods loomed ahead, just outlines of trunks stacked on darkness. The light was maybe 200 feet in, farther than it looked. It glowed faintly between the trees like it wanted me to follow. Halfway there, I realized how quiet it had gotten. Even my footsteps seemed swallowed up. No wind, no insects, just my breathing, and that steady light ahead. When I reached the spot where I thought it was gone. I swept my flashlight around, nothing, just trees, branches, and black soil. But when I turned back toward the cabin, I froze. The light was behind me now, closer. About 10 feet away, hovering between two trees. I stumbled backward, the flashlight shaking in my hand. My breath came out in fogged bursts. It wasn't hanging from anything. There were no wires, no lantern, no bulb. It just glowed, a perfect sphere of white about the size of an apple, humming faintly like static. And then, I swear I saw this. It moved. Just a small shift. A tilt, like it was turning its attention toward me. That broke me out of it. I turned and sprinted back through the trees, branches clawing at my coat, lungs burning. When I reached the cabin, I slammed the door, locked it, and killed the flashlight. My chest heaved in the dark. For a moment, everything was still. Then, faintly through the kitchen window, I saw the glow again. It was closer now, right at the edge of the yard, just beyond the tree line. I could see it clearly through the glass. Still that perfect steady light. No flicker. No sound. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on it. That's when the generator kicked on. The lights in the cabin flickered to life, and the glow outside vanished, like it had never been there. I didn't sleep much after that. I kept the lights on all night, sitting in the living room with the TV playing static for noise. Every time I glanced at the window, I half expected to see that white dot again, waiting just beyond the glass. By morning, I'd convinced myself it had been a trick of the eyes. A flashlight beam from a hunter, maybe, or the way moonlight refracts through fog. But when I stepped outside, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. In the dirt behind the cabin, right where I'd seen the light the first time, there were small indentations, footprints, barefoot, child-sized. I called the nearest ranger station that afternoon, told them someone might be trespassing around the property. The ranger on duty, an older guy named Carson, said he'd send someone out the next day to check the perimeter. Don't go looking for them yourself, he warned. Lot of old wells out there. Ground's not safe this time of year. I promised I wouldn't. I lied because that night, I saw the light again. It appeared around midnight. Just outside the same kitchen window, I'd been sitting on the couch, reading by the lamplight when a faint white glow spilled across the floorboards. I turned, and there it was, hovering just above the grass this time. Closer than before, and behind it, barely visible in the dark, and a shape. Small. Still. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then the shape moved. It stepped forward just enough for me to see a silhouette. A child, maybe 8 or 9, standing perfectly still, hands at their sides, face turned toward the window. I couldn't make out details and just the outline against that glowing sphere. I whispered, "Hello?" The shape didn't move, but the nightlight, because that's what it was. I could see it now, flickered once, twice. Then slowly it began to rise higher, until it was level with the child's head. And then the glow went out, complete darkness. When I turned the lamp back toward the window, there was nothing there, just my reflection staring back. I checked the yard in the morning, no footprints this time, but someone had left something by the porch steps. A small plastic nightlight, old and yellowed, shaped like a teddy bear. Its plug was broken clean off, and on the back, written in faded marker, were 2 words, "Don't follow." I called Ranger Carson again. He sounded uneasy when I told him. "You said your uncle used to own that cabin?" he asked. "Yeah." "Was he up there alone before he passed?" "As far as I know. Why?" He paused, and I could hear him shifting papers on his desk. "Just stay inside tonight. Lock your doors. We'll come by tomorrow." Before I could ask why, the line went dead. That night, I didn't bother pretending I'd sleep. I sat by the window with a flashlight and waited. For hours, nothing happened. Just the occasional creak of the cabin settling, wind brushing the eaves. Then, around 3 in the morning, The power cut out again, and almost instantly through the black glass of the window, the white glow returned closer than ever, right outside the porch. And this time, I swear I could see eyes in the light, pale, unfocused, drifting just within it like something was inside looking out. The power never came back on. I sat there frozen, watching that faint white glow hover just beyond the porch rail. It didn't waver, didn't blink, it just waited. My flashlight sat on the table beside me, but I didn't dare turn it on. The air in the cabin had gone heavy, thick like the atmosphere before a storm. I could hear my own heartbeat, fast and uneven, and under it, something else. A soft hum, low and mechanical, the kind of frequency that makes your teeth ache. It was coming from the light. I don't know how long I stood there, staring. Time didn't move right, every second stretched. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the glow drifted away from the porch, gliding back into the trees like a lantern carried by invisible hands, and, God help me, I followed. The woods were darker than I'd ever seen them. Without the moon, everything was just shapes and shadows, but I could still see the glow, bobbing ahead like it was leading me somewhere. Every so often, I'd lose sight of it behind the trees, and panic would surge in my chest, but then it would reappear, always the same distance away, like it was making sure I didn't fall behind. I told myself it had to be a trick, some kind of phosphorescence, or even kids messing with drones, but the rationalizations felt hollow, because every now and then the glow would stop moving, and I'd hear whispering, not words exactly, just a low rustle of sound, close enough that I could feel breath against the back of my neck. I spun around more than once, flashlight raised, expecting someone to be there, but there was never anything, only that nightlight glow, pulsing faintly through the fog. After maybe 10 minutes, the light stopped moving altogether. It hovered in a small clearing I didn't recognize, a circle of trees with roots so thick they broke the ground open in jagged patterns, and right in the center was a stump, at least. I thought it was a stump at first, but as I stepped closer, I realized it wasn't wood. It was plastic. A child's toy chest, half buried in the soil, its lid warped and split. The light floated directly above it. Humming softly, I knelt down, heart hammering. The plastic was brittle under my fingers, cold as ice. I pried it open slowly. Inside were dozens of nightlights, all shapes and sizes. Stars, moons, cartoon animals, tangled together in a nest of dirt and wires. Some were cracked, others melted, their cords coiled like veins, and among them, a small cloth doll. Its face was drawn in marker, faded and smudged. One button eye missing. Tied around its neck was a child's hospital bracelet. I could still make out the name Benji. My throat went dry. That was my uncle's son, my cousin. He'd died in this forest when I was 7. I stumbled backward, pulse racing. My flashlight beam jumped across the clearing, catching something carved into the trees. Numbers, dates 2003, 2008, 2015, 2020, and under each date, a single word scratched deep into the bark. Found, found, found. The air around me pulsed. The white glow brightened, and I swear I heard whispering again, louder now, urgent, right beside my ear. I turned, and the light moved toward me. It didn't float anymore. It lunged like it was drawn by my breath. I stumbled back, fell, hit the ground hard. The flashlight clattered away, landing face down. In that half-darkness, the glow expanded, filling the clearing with white haze. And inside it, on through the shimmer, I saw a silhouette, a small child, barefoot, wearing pajamas. He looked exactly like I remembered Benji from the photos, except his skin was the same pale white as the light itself. He tilted his head slightly, like he recognized me. "Why are you following me?" I managed to whisper. The boy didn't answer. He just stepped forward, leaving faint glowing footprints in the dirt. And when he spoke, his voice sounded wrong, like it was coming from inside my head, muffled and layered, like a recording played through static. "You left the light on." I scrambled to my feet and ran. Branches tore at my arms, my breath catching on every gasp. Behind me, the hum grew louder, deeper, vibrating through the ground. I didn't dare look back. When I finally burst through the tree line, the cabin was barely visible, just a shadow against the fog. I ran straight for the porch, slammed the door, and locked it. The power was still out. The darkness pressed in on every side, and outside through the kitchen window, I could see more lights now, not 1, 5, 6, maybe more, all hovering in a slow circle just beyond the yard. They pulsed in unison, brightening and dimming like a heartbeat. I hid in the back room, crouched behind the bed, clutching the flashlight. Every time the wind shifted, I swore I could hear whispering again, faint laughter, like children playing far away. And underneath it, the hum, always the hum. I must have blacked out at some point because when I opened my eyes, light was filtering through the blinds. Morning. The forest outside looked ordinary again. No fog, no floating lights. For a moment, I almost believed I'd imagined it all, until I noticed the footprints, tiny, bare footprints, glowing faintly in the morning sun, circling the cabin, leading straight to the back door. And right there on the doormat sat the same teddy bear nightlight from before. This time, it wasn't broken, it was plugged into a long, black cord that disappeared under the doorframe. My hands were shaking as I bent down and pulled the cord free. The moment I did, something clicked inside the wall, a soft electrical pop, followed by silence. Then the lights in the cabin flickered back on, and every outlet in the house glowed faintly white, not yellow, not warm, the same cold, perfect glow I'd seen in the woods. I backed away slowly, scanning the room. The hum was inside the walls now, low, steady, vibrating under the floorboards. In the kitchen, the fridge light was on even though the door was closed. The lamp in the living room glowed without being plugged in. Every light source in the house burned with that same sterile brightness. And from somewhere deep in the forest, I heard it again, that soft, distant voice, layered and echoing like a broken recording. You left the light on. We came back. I didn't go outside again, not for the rest of that day. I stayed inside the cabin with the curtains drawn, every light still glowing that same pale, unnatural white. I tried to unplug them all, lamps, the microwave, even the damn toaster. But no matter what I did, they kept glowing. There was no warmth coming from them. No heat, just cold light like moonlight trapped in glass. The hum had become constant now. I could feel it in my chest. Every time I breathed in, it pulsed slightly faster, syncing with my heartbeat. It felt like the cabin itself was alive. By late afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Ranger Carson again. The line rang 3 times before someone picked up. It wasn't Carson. The voice on the other end was calm, but wrong. Too smooth, too even. "Ranger Station," it said. "Who are you trying to reach?" "Carson," I said. "He was supposed to come out here today." "The Whitaker property?" "My uncle's cabin." A pause, then quietly, "There's no one here by that name." I felt my throat go dry. "He's the only ranger I've spoken to." The voice hesitated again. Then flatly, "Sir, that area hasn't been in use for several years." "What?" "The station burned down in 2019. No one's been assigned to that region since." I hung up before the voice could say anything else. The hum in the walls grew louder. By sunset, the forest outside was glowing again. Dozens of faint white lights dotted the tree line, like someone had hung lanterns in every branch, and then they started moving. Not fast, just drifting, slowly, deliberately, like they were circling the cabin. I closed every curtain, locked every window, but that didn't stop the light from seeping in. Pale bands bleeding through the cracks, striping the walls. The hum changed pitch. Higher now, closer to a voice than a vibration. I pressed my hands to my ears and whispered, "Please stop." It did, for about 10 seconds. Then, softly, it spoke back. "We remember you." I dropped the flashlight. It clattered across the floor and rolled under the table. I didn't want to hear it, didn't want to believe it, but deep down I already knew what it meant because I remembered too. I was 7 the summer Benji disappeared. We'd been playing in the woods behind this same cabin. My uncle was inside fixing lunch. We had this stupid little ritual, leaving nightlights out by the trees whenever we camped. Said it kept the forest awake so it wouldn't swallow us up. That day I'd brought one of mine, a tiny plastic rocket ship that glowed blue when you plugged it in. Benji wanted to take it deeper into the woods. He said there was a special tree that could keep it glowing forever. I told him no. He went anyway. By the time my uncle realized we were gone, the sun was already setting. We searched until dark. The only thing we ever found was that same rocket nightlight, sitting on the forest floor, still glowing even though there was no power. 2 weeks later, they stopped searching. I never told anyone that it was my nightlight. The hum grew louder again, snapping me back. It was coming from the hallway now. I turned slowly toward it, every hair on my body standing on end. The door to the back bedroom was cracked open. Light leaked through the gap. The same pale, steady white, I whispered. No. But the door creaked wider on its own. The hum inside shifted again, rising and falling like someone whispering just below hearing level. I took one step forward, then another. The floorboards moaned under my weight. The room was cold. The bed was still unmade from the night before, sheets half hanging off. The light was coming from the closet, a soft glow spilling out through the slats. I reached for the handle, hand shaking. The wood felt warm, not from heat, but from static. When I pulled the door open, the air inside seemed to collapse. The hum stopped completely, and there on the floor, plugged into an outlet that shouldn't even have been there, was another nightlight. This one shaped like a rocket, blue plastic. Scratched. Old. Exactly like the one I lost 20 years ago. My knees almost gave out. I reached down slowly and unplugged it. Instantly, every light in the house went out. The silence that followed was thick and perfect. I couldn't even hear my own breath for a moment. I thought it was over. Then I heard movement outside, footsteps, light ones, bare feet against the porch. I turned toward the sound just as a soft knock came from the front door. 3 slow taps, then nothing. My mouth went dry. Who's there? Silence. Another knock. Then, faintly through the wood, a child's voice. You left the light on. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. Benji? The voice giggled. Hi, sweet wrong, come play. The doorknob started to turn. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a rusted crowbar from under the sink, and held it like a weapon. The knob kept turning, slow and steady. The hinges creaked. Then the door stopped. Silence again. I edged closer, raising the crowbar. Through the gap under the door, a faint glow spilled in, and in that glow, a shadow. Small, barefoot, unmoving. I couldn't see a face, just the outline. Then the glow shifted, dimming slightly. The shadow turned and walked away. I waited until I couldn't see the light anymore before I dropped the crowbar and collapsed to the floor. I don't know how long I stayed there, shaking hours maybe, until the hum came back, louder this time, and from the hallway another voice joined it. Flat, adult, familiar. You should have kept it on. It was my uncle's voice. I looked toward the hallway and saw the faintest shimmer of movement, like someone standing in the dark just beyond the kitchen light. I whispered his name, once. The shimmer twitched, then froze, and for a brief, impossible second, I thought I saw 2 figures instead of one, a man's silhouette. And beside it, smaller, hand in hand, both glowing faintly from within. The hum peaked, vibrating the floorboards. Then all at once, the power surged back. Every bulb in the cabin blazed white, and both figures were gone. On the wall near the door, something new had appeared, a single sentence, burned into the wood like it had been written with light itself. You left the forest dark too long. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't, because somewhere in the woods, faint but steady, I could see that same cold glow flickering through the trees. Except this time, there wasn't just one. The forest was full of them, hundreds, and they were all moving toward the cabin. By the time the first one reached the porch, I'd already packed a bag. I didn't even know what I was grabbing. Just clothes, my car keys, my phone. Anything that made me feel less trapped. The hum was inside the walls now, inside me. Every surface vibrated faintly. The windows glowed. The outlets breathed. I knew if I stayed one more minute, I'd never leave. So I ran. I threw the front door open and bolted into the cold. The air outside hit me like a wall. Wet, metallic, heavy with that ozone smell that follows lightning. My breath came out white. My ears rang from the silence between each heartbeat. The lights were everywhere now. Dozens of small, hovering orbs scattered through the trees, moving with strange rhythm, slow pulses of brightness, like a single heartbeat shared among all of them. As I ran down the path toward the car, they began to drift closer, drawn toward my movement. I could feel the static buzz through the air, brushing my skin. And underneath it, whispering, children's voices, laughing, singing, but the words were wrong. Backwards, the car was 50 feet away when the engine lights blinked on by themselves, then off, then on again. When I reached it, the keys in my pocket burned so hot I dropped them. I picked them up with shaking hands and jammed them into the ignition. The headlights flickered to life, but instead of cutting through the dark, they illuminated a wall of white orbs hovering across the driveway. They didn't move like anything alive. They hovered in strange, stuttering patterns, sliding up and down the air like marionettes. Through them, I could almost see faces, small, pale, blurred by the light. Children, eyes open, mouths slack, like they were mouthing words they didn't understand. I slammed the car into reverse and hit the gas. The tires spun in the mud, throwing wet dirt across the yard. The headlights flared brighter for a second, and I saw something standing in the middle of the driveway. A figure, a man. My uncle. He wasn't glowing. He was burned into the light like a photo overexposed too long. His mouth moved, slow and mechanical, and though I couldn't hear it through the glass, I could read the words, "Turn it off." Then the orbs surged forward. The windows filled with white. The hum roared so loud I thought my skull would split. I ducked low and covered my ears, but the noise wasn't just sound, and it was inside my head, vibrating every thought into static. Through the chaos, I saw the nightlights, hundreds of them now, pressing against the windshield, the glass warping under their glow, and at the center of them all stood a small shape. A boy, barefoot, his face faintly illuminated from within. He raised one hand and pointed directly at me. "You left the light on." Then everything went black. When I woke up, it was morning. I was slumped against the steering wheel, the engine cold. The forest around me was still. No humming, no light, just the whisper of wind and birdsong. For a long time, I didn't move. Eventually, I opened the door and stepped out. The yard looked untouched. No footprints, no scorch marks. Nothing to show what had happened, except for the power line. It was lying across the ground, snapped clean in half. The end near the cabin was melted into the soil, blackened in a perfect circle, and right in the center of that circle sat a single nightlight, the same teddy bear one from before, still plugged into its cord, still glowing. I left that day, drove until the forest disappeared in the rearview mirror. I didn't stop until I hit cell service. When I finally pulled over, I checked my phone. There were 3 new photos in my gallery, all time-stamped during the night I lost consciousness. The first was the cabin porch, glowing faintly under the white lights. The second was a close-up of my car window, my reflection staring back, eyes wide with fear. The third was a picture of me sleeping in the driver's seat, taken from outside. I deleted them immediately. Changed phones. Changed everything. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep without a light on. Every dark corner looked alive. Every flicker of white in the distance made my stomach twist. But the thing that scares me most is this. Sometimes, even now, I'll wake up in the middle of the night to a faint electrical hum. I'll get up, check every outlet, every lamp, all dark. Then I'll look out the window, and there it is. A single white glow in the trees, right at the edge of sight. Steady, silent, waiting. I tried telling people, friends, coworkers, even a therapist. Most think it's trauma, that I'm chasing ghosts of my childhood guilt. And maybe they're right. But last week, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a nightlight, rocket-shaped, blue plastic, and taped to it was a scrap of old paper, yellowed and brittle. One sentence written in a child's uneven handwriting. "You left the forest dark too long." That night, the hum came back, and this time, it wasn't in the walls. It was under the bed. The plug socket next to the nightstand flickered white, and before I could move, Before I could even scream, a small voice whispered from the dark beneath me. Soft, close, right by my ear. It's okay. You remembered. Now keep the light on. I sleep with it plugged in now. I don't know what happens if I turn it off. I don't want to know. But sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I see movement just outside the window. Faint silhouettes drifting between the trees. Children. And for a moment, when their glow catches the glass just right, I swear I can see Benji smiling. Then the lights fade, the forest quiets, and all that's left is the steady hum of the nightlight.